Welcome to today's lesson, 8th graders. I am so excited you're joining me today because honestly, we're tackling something incredibly powerful. See that broken chain? Well, that right there is our ultimate goal for today. We're going to look really closely at how to literally break free from the things that hold us down and how to discover what true freedom actually looks like. It's an absolutely essential life lesson, and it all starts with understanding one massive, kind of heavy concept, sin. So let's just dive right in, shall we? Okay, so here's our roadmap for this explainer. We've got 6 sections to unpack. First, what is sin really? Then, the downward spiral. Third, the great equalizer. Fourth, freedom through Jesus Christ. Fifth, living dead to sin. And finally, we'll wrap the whole thing up with the godly learner philosophy. All right, kicking things off with section 1, what is sin really? Now, I want to challenge you right now to just drop whatever preconceived notions you might have about that word. A lot of times, we kind of think of sin as just a minor slip-up, right? Like a little mistake or a bad habit we just can't seem to shake. But look closely at this definition. Sin isn't just an oops. Sin is actually rebellion. It's an active, direct rebellion against God's truth, His commands, and His ways. And the absolute crucial point here is the consequence. It separates people from God, and it brings death. Think about it like unplugging a lamp from the wall. The lamp doesn't just make a mistake, it literally loses its connection to the power source and goes completely dark. That is exactly what sin does to our souls. It breaks our vital connection with God. And that heavy reality brings us to section 2, the downward spiral. Let's move into the teachings of Romans chapter 1 to see how this all builds up over time. Because, you see, rebellion is rarely just a one-time event. It's a process. Imagine how one wrong choice just kind of cascades into a dozen more. This tragic progression happens in 4 distinct steps. Look at step 1. It starts when we simply reject God's truth. And once you push that truth away, well, step 2 happens. You exchange that truth for lies. Then we hit step 3, where wrong thinking naturally leads to wrong desires. You start wanting things you really shouldn't. And finally, step 4, those wrong desires inevitably lead to wrong actions. It's kind of like a smartphone virus, right? You click one bad link, that's rejecting the truth. The virus gets in, exchanges your normal software for malicious code, completely messes up how the phone processes things, and suddenly your phone starts acting totally out of control. Sin pulls a person downward in that exact same way, unless they manage to hit the reset button through God's mercy.
So, moving right along to section 3, the great equalizer. We just looked at Romans 1, but if we shift gears to Romans 3, we learn a really hard truth about this whole downward spiral.
And that truth is that this is a universal human problem. Look at these 4 items. These are things that absolutely cannot rescue you from that spiral. Your family background doesn't matter how great your parents are. Religious rituals, like circumcision in the Old Testament or just going to church every single Sunday, nope, won't save you. Your human knowledge or your physical human strength, still not enough. The Apostle Paul makes it super clear that nobody gets a free pass, neither Jew nor Gentile. All the earthly advantages in the world literally cannot fix a spiritual rebellion. The whole point is summarized perfectly right here in our memory verse of the day, Romans 3:23. For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. I really want you to focus closely on those first 2 words, for all. Because every single one of us falls short. Absolutely everyone needs a rescuer. You know, you can't outsmart, outmuscle, or outtradition your way out of sin. We are all on totally level ground here, deeply, deeply in need of saving. Which actually leads us to the best news possible. Section 4, freedom through Jesus Christ. If we're all completely stuck in that spiral, how do we break those chains? We need the ultimate solution, and here it is, born-again salvation. But notice the really specific requirement here. It requires surrendered faith in Jesus. Now, that's not just believing He existed the way you believe George Washington existed. It means actually surrendering to Him as Lord, Master, Boss, and Savior. See, true freedom isn't just about knowing facts in your head. It is about willingly handing over the steering wheel of your entire life. You're trading a terrible master, which is sin, and that leads to death, for a perfect, incredibly loving master and boss, Jesus, who leads you straight to life.
Now let's turn to section 5, living dead to sin. We're going to dive into Romans chapter 6 to tackle a massive, massive misconception.
A lot of people think, hey, if God forgives me, does that mean His grace is basically just a free pass to keep doing whatever I want? Can I just keep rebelling? Well, this bonus verse answers that with a resounding no. Read it with me. Therefore, do not let sin reign in your mortal body, that you should obey it in its lusts.
Now, to reign means to rule like a king. As a true believer, you absolutely cannot let sin sit on the throne of your life anymore. Jesus is your boss now, not your wrong desires.
Notice the really stark contrast here. We have the old way, letting sin reign in your mortal bodies, essentially letting it boss you around and drag you back down that spiral. Then we have the new way, presenting yourselves to God as instruments of righteousness. This right here is what it practically means to be dead to sin and alive to God. You are now a tool, an instrument, in God's hands to do what is right, what is good, and what brings Him the glory.
But listen, 8th graders, I know this is hard. And honestly, the Bible knows it's hard. That's exactly why we call our daily walk a work-in-progress salvation. It involves actively resisting sin, obeying God from your heart, and really living to please the Father. And you want to know the most important part? You do not have to do this alone. You do this through God's grace and His Spirit. He actually gives you the daily power to overcome sin. Yes, you are a work in progress, but you've got the ultimate helper living right inside you.
Okay, let's take a quick pause here. You might be wondering, why does a school care so much about your soul? Why are we, as an academy, talking so deeply about sin, salvation, and Romans chapters 1, 3, and 6? I mean, what on earth does this have to do with your math homework, your science projects, or your history essays?
Well, it has absolutely everything to do with it. Let's move into our final section for today, the Godly Learner Philosophy. This is the very core framework of HeroesMart Academy,
Because we firmly believe that math, science, and the Bible are all deeply connected. The crucial takeaway is this: education without biblical morality can actually hurt you. Think about it. If you become super smart, incredibly capable, and highly educated, but you have zero moral compass, that knowledge is just dangerous. A downward spiral combined with a genius intellect just creates way more destruction. We intertwine biblical morality with education because your intelligence shouldn't just make you more capable of doing things, it should actively help you make wise, God-honoring choices in every single thing you do. True education builds godly character, not just big brains.
And that brings us to our final thought today, straight from Romans 8. Keeping the mind spiritually minded leads to life and peace. As you pursue absolute academic excellence here, I urge you, keep your mind anchored in God's truth. Center your intelligence on wisdom and righteous choices. You have a huge choice to make every single day: the downward spiral of rebellion or the beautiful, completely free journey of life and peace with Jesus as your boss. The chains are broken, 8th graders, so how are you going to use your freedom today?